Hello everyone, it's Dylan from Yu-Gi-Oh! Everything, and welcome back to another Yu-Gi-Oh! Video, another Appreciating Yu-Gi-Oh! Video, which is the podcast that I have been doing with my friend Rarity Fangirl31, where we take a look at different aspects of the animated or manga side of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Franchise, and just talk about them for, 20, 30 minutes, and go over things that we love about them, and maybe some slight criticisms, but of course, to keep on brand with the name Appreciating Yu-Gi-Oh! It's usually more of the positive sides. And as always, I am joined by the one and only Rarity. Rarity, how are you doing today?
I'm doing very, very well. Hello, friends. I am very excited. Today's episode, we are talking about the iconic, the legendary Yu-Gi-Oh! GX's English dub, which is actually my favorite English dub of the entire run. And I'm really, really excited to talk about it. But before we get into it, when we do the promotions at the end of the podcast, I have something really big that if you've been following me on Twitter, you go to my channel, you might already know about this. But if you are a fan of Yu-Gi-Oh! Go Rush, which by the time of the recording this is ending this Saturday, if you are a big fan of that, you might want to stay tuned to a little announcement about that, about a project that I'm doing with the community. So I hope you guys will get to tune in and participate in that if you so wish. But yeah, we're talking about GX's dub today. So this is going to be a ton of fun. I love this dub so much. I can't wait to talk about it.
Yeah, so definitely stay tuned for that at the end, of course, of the episode. And yeah, the Yu-Gi-Oh! GX dub, man, there is a lot to say. This will probably be one of the last dub episodes that we do. I know we did it for Duel Monsters, but I don't think we are planning to do this for the other dubs. I mean, we'll see, but this is probably going to be the last one. And we felt like it was good to have an episode dedicated to the English side of the GX dub because it is one of the more, I think, well-known English dubs. Whether you love it or can't stand it, you have to admit it is one of the most iconic Yu-Gi-Oh! Dubs. And I think the reason for that is probably how much of a meme that this dub actually is. And I've always said when it comes to the Yu-Gi-Oh! GX dub, if you watch this dub and treat it as a comedy and almost treat it as like an abridged take on the original, I think you'll find yourself really enjoying the dub. I remember when I was younger, I thought the dub, even for me at that time, was like a little a little over the top in terms of just how goofy it was with the one-liners. I mean, the original series dub certainly did have its fair share of one-liners, but I felt like GX was just almost like, extreme with all the one-liners and all the ridiculous voices that they did. And then as you get older, if you kind of view it more as like them treating GX as a comedic show and as a comedy, I think you view it as more, I think you appreciate the GX dub, and that is something that I do, I have come to appreciate as the years have gone on. I mean, if you look at some of the characters, there is no Yu-Gi-Oh! Show that has more one-off, one episode characters than Yu-Gi-Oh! GX. And Yu-Gi-Oh! GX, of course, is the longest spin-off series in terms of episodes. And so you have so many characters, and I think to just keep it fresh, to keep it to try to keep the audience's attention, they did give just ridiculous voices to as many one-off characters as possible, whether it was, Damon, the Tarzan guy, or the Mad Dog guy that Zane dueled in the underground dueling facility, which that one was like unbelievable how ridiculous their take on that character was. And it feels to me like they were trying to make like a spoof of the Yu-Gi-Oh! GX original anime. And I think, listen, if their goal was to be funny and be comedic, I think they succeeded in that. Now, there's people, of course, who want a more one-to-one dub, and, the GX dub is probably going to be your least favorite if that's what you were looking for. But to be fair, that has never been the goal of the English dub side, and that's kind of a discussion for another video. The dubs have always tried to be its own product, and I don't think there has been a Yu-Gi-Oh! English dub that has been more its own product than the Yu-Gi-Oh! GX English dub. While the original series certainly is goofy and comedic, I think the GX dub elevates that to a level that we have never seen before. I mean, Sevens, I would argue, is a more comedy-based show than Yu-Gi-Oh! GX throughout. But that being said, the dub of Sevens doesn't even do nearly what the dub of GX did, in my opinion, with the one-liners, with the goofy voices, and just trying to make it as much of a meme as possible. So I think your enjoyment level of the GX dub is based on your mindset. If you're looking for that one-to-one, you're going to really, really hate it. But if you go in treating it as a comedy, treating it as you're like watching an abridged series, I think you're going to really, really appreciate the GX dub. And as I've gotten older, I've kind of shifted my mindset to that whenever I view the GX dub as like, okay, I can see what they were trying to do. And they were trying to do a really over-the-top, ridiculous comedic take on this show. And now whenever I watch it, of course, with that mindset of just like goofy, mindless entertainment. And I think the GX dub does a wonderful job encapsulating that. Rarity, just generally speaking, I mean, what are your thoughts here on the Yu-Gi-Oh! GX dub?
The Yugioh GX dub is the fact that they got a lot of this stuff like passed is so like unbelievable. It's so funny. And even just jokes, like even if you just take them as jokes, if you see any of those YouTube videos of like Yu-Gi-Oh! Out of context, the majority of them are going to be from the GX dub. Like, one of my favorites, Schmaden Schmooky, that Aster Phoenix says, "You hear me, Schmaden?" I won't tell you his name, but it rhymes with Schmaden Schmooky. There's things like that. There's the iconic moment with the face down cards, right? With Adrian Gecko, and there's like, but how? I just call their names and they appear. Haven't you played this game before?
Yep,
it's like
yep.
Things like that just the fact this was an official product from like a company is outlandish. And of course the weird voices. One of the ones that I know is on the thumbnail that we talked about is they just made Belowski a stoner with
Yes.
Moki Moki, that everybody was high. This is a kids show, right? And of course, also on the thumbnail, some of the weird censorship, like changing alcohol to hot sauce of all things. I think that might be the most wild Yu-Gi-Oh! Censorship I've ever seen. I think that nothing can take the cake, which is why I put it on the thumbnail for this month's episode. Just absolutely wild people getting high off of hot sauce. I remember even as a kid, little sheltered Rarity, who was, when she was a little girl, didn't really know what alcohol was just like, why are they drinking hot sauce? I know I hate hot sauce, you know, like I'm not a fan of big spicy foods. It's not really my thing. I was like, but why are they drinking it and acting all loopy? I don't get it. But now as an adult, I'm just like, oh, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And the spell card flipping the table. I mean, that's what it was, I think, in Japanese. But oh, that episode was wild. But yeah, the GX dub is super iconic with a ton of iconic performances. And I think that a lot of one of my favorite performances, just talk about some of the voice acting for a minute. I loved Anthony Salerno. He was Chaz's first voice actor. Not to say Mark Thompson, who took over the role and is playing him currently in Duel Links and whatnot, doesn't do a great job. But I think Anthony really brought the comedic nature of Chaz, kind of, as like, the loser, right? The kind of loser guy who gets beat up, but also like make him cool. To the same factor that Manjome's Japanese voice actor did as well. I really loved his performance. And also Matthew Labrix, I can't pronounce his name, who voices Jaden. Super iconic voice. Apparently he's been very elusive as a person. He doesn't really go to conventions really that often. He'll come back, of course, for like events. But his Jaden, I love his performance just as much as I love Ken's performance in the Japanese version. I think he does a great job. He's just really, really good. I love Oliver Wynn, who's Aster, David Wills, who's Hasselberry, Christopher C. Adams, who was Jesse, as well. Eric Singer, who was Jim Crocodile Cook. A lot of the voice acting, now I know we talk about GX as a comedy, right? And it very much is, but I still think that they did a lot of the emotional moments pretty good. I still remember as a kid still crying my eyes out at, Yubel in Jaden's, the big fusion thing as a kid. I cried at that, both in both versions, or even some of the interesting voice acting thing they did with Yubel, because this was something they did in the dub only, was they overlaid, if I remember correctly, I think this is dub only, overlaid Jesse and Yubel's voices together when Yubel was possessing them, right, and added that purple glow, instead of just having it be just Jesse's voice actor in the sub, Johan's, right? I think that was a really cool idea to kind of show that demonic possession. I think from a voice acting perspective, I really, really liked that. So that was really cool. And another thing that I think GX's dub is just as iconic for, besides the, you know, the comedy, is the soundtrack. Not just the amazing opening, but the guitar riff. I forever will associate Yu-Gi-Oh! GX with a guitar riff because of this show. The you guys all know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah,
like
everybody who's watched it can hear it. Yep.
Yeah, it fits the vibe. I think of like this like chill, you know, chill school vibe, you know. And I think they did a really good job of that. I also really loved the I think it's the unreleased track is called The Shadow Duelist. I think it's like the theme they played when like the Sacred Beast showed up, you know, the big scary moments. I love that soundtrack too. It has a little bit of a choir in it. I think it also played when the Supreme King activates super polymerization against Jim. I think it plays during that too, as well. And I really, really love the soundtrack. I'm sad that like I know that the original DM dub had quite a few of its soundtracks released on a CD. Not all of them. Some fans have been able to compile most of them, but GX's dub soundtrack, and along with the other dubs as well, because there's again, we're not going to be probably doing separate videos on the other dubs, but it's something notable from the dubs. I'm sure we'll mention it in whatever episode we're talking about. But the GX's dub has so much nice little guitar riffs and some themes that I really would have liked. Again, the electric guitar, I just forever associate with Yu-Gi-Oh! GX, and I think that's a pretty fitting instrument. I think, especially because, you know, there's the superhero thing, right? It kind of goes with like the badassery of the whole thing. But GX's dub, I think, has gotten a lot more love over the years, I think, compared to, especially like basically people shifting to your viewpoint, Dylan, right? That it is very much its own separate product.
Right.
And like, I think that the fact that that was their goal, like you said, they did a great job of it, but I still think that, well, of course they didn't finish the show, of course, that's what they talk about, right? They only dubbed up to season 3. So if you're a dub-only watcher, Jaden just kind of dies, and you don't know what happens to him. He just dies, right?
Yeah.
I guess it's like I guess if you're a dub-only watcher, that's the only Yu-Gi-Oh! As far as we know, we don't know what's happening with Goresh. Who knows? But Udius might die. I don't know. But like, as you're a dub-only watcher, right? You watch the show and Jaden's dead, right? I remember as a kid being like, "Wait, he's just gone? What? Wait, what?" It's kind of sad that they had to stop on season 3, because I would have been curious how they would have handled season 4, especially, which I know that quite a lot of people want that to come back, but guys, it's not happening. I don't think it's ever happening. I think during GX's 20th anniversary would have been, like, right now, would have been the only time, but there's no reason for it. You know, no reason for it, especially because, you know, Konami has to see some kind of, like, worthwhileness to do it. Same thing why we never got Yu-Gi-Oh! Uncut, too. I think we talked about that during the dub video for DM as well, why we probably wouldn't get that. Oh, I really loved a lot of... I kind of like a lot of the names. Obviously, I prefer the Japanese names, but, like, Dr. Vanillion Crowler. That is a great name for Chronos. Yeah. Atticus Rhodes, Alexis Rhodes, I think those are fine. I love Chaz Princeton as a name. I love Chaz. Chaz it up, right? And they made the catchphrase, too. When I think of Manjome, I think of Chaz it up more than I think of Manjome Thunder, which Manjome Thunder is obviously really good. I really liked that as well. I love Zane as a name. Ryo's cool, but Zane still sounds cool. Aster to Edo. Tyranno Kenton, Tyranno Hasselberry, basically same thing, just adding in a different last name. Jesse to Johan, right? And in the accent, I keep forgetting they made Jesse Southern when I think he's supposed to be Scandinavian. They just made him Southern for some reason.
Yeah.
I think it fits his wholesome, like, good boy vibe. You know, I think that's probably why they picked it, because he's just like, oh, he's just this little, cute little dude. Really nice guy there. And then Marcel, right, with the... I really think that Marcel was interesting. That was the character that Yubel possesses later on, Bonaparte's kid. That when they weren't possessed, they had the French accent, but then when they weren't possessed, they took the accent away to show that was Yubel, which I love that. I love it if they do something like that. That was really cool as well. I think the voice actors of GX definitely put a lot of their heart into it. Whether, of course, it was things in terms of, like, the funny moments, but I also think they, again, put their all that they could into the actual performances in terms of the emotion. as well. And I think that's really cool. Or the fact that I know Yugioh, which this is the same thing in the Japanese version too. They actually kept Yugioh having both a female voice actor and a male voice actor for Yugioh. The sub had that as well. That they kept that in there. I love they kept that detail too. It's one of those little details that's like, the Go Rush dub, they're keeping, that if they played the Ancestor in Sevens, they're going to play them in the dub most likely for Go Rush. I love, like, when they have that consistency between casting choices between dub and sub. I love that stuff like that. Speaking of things right now, I think we talked about this before we started recording. GX actually has had 3 different voice directors, which is super interesting to me. I think we talked about during the DM dub video, right, that, Eric Stewart did season 1, and then the rest of it was Darren Dustman, who's the current voice director. He's Pegasus. Apparently for GX, Eric Stewart was the first voice director on Yu-Gi-Oh! GX, and then it was Christopher Collette, who plays Johnny Steps, and then Julie Raff, who I've never heard of her name before. So it's interesting that the dub went through 3 different voice directors, but despite that, I think the voice acting consistency, I didn't really hear much of a difference in the way that the lines were delivered at all. I think that they kept it pretty strongly consistent throughout the entire run, even for the more darker, serious season 3, for example.
Yeah, it is interesting. And, Darren Dunstan's been the voice director for a very long time on Yu-Gi-Oh! And obviously the voice actor of Pegasus, for those that might not know that in the English dub. So yeah, I did not know. That's got to be the most, I don't know this off the top of my head, but I would bet money that that's the most different amount of voice actors that any of the spin-off Yu-Gi-Ohs have ever, voice directors, that any of the spin-off Yu-Gi-Ohs have ever had, which is certainly interesting. The one thing that you had mentioned that I really, really wanted to touch on is the fact that this is one of the few dubs, and I say one of the few dubs because 5Ds is the same way, that was not finished. But at least with the 5Ds dub, they ended on a point where it makes sense. In the 5Ds anime, you have the Neo-Arc Cradle falling from the sky, but in the GX dub, Jaden actually dies, and I don't know why they didn't dub the final episode of season 3. Do you have any idea why they wouldn't have dubbed that episode?
I'm not quite sure why. I know that the GX dub ran from 2005, I believe, I think it was 2005 to 2008 was when they recorded it, right? And 5Ds was starting. I think the biggest reasons why they didn't dub this, I think number 1 could have been a licensing issue, because of course, a lot of things with dubs, right, have to do with legal issues. I think a lot of the reason, for example, the new Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime stuff, the new anime channel for Japan is region locked, probably has to do with Seiyu contracts, most likely. That Konami is very strict on their licensing compared to other companies where they basically make it very hard for distributors. So basically, they can't use that product. I think that's also why it took forever, right, for us to get Crunchyroll to sub the show, for of course. But I think that could have just been that maybe they just felt it was more satisfying to stop it there and not just start with Jaden returning and then, the story arc continuing. I guess they just thought oh, we're just gonna end it with him looking at the stars, I guess. I honestly don't have a reason, but I'm guessing it had to do with 1, they had to get the 5Ds dub started, which is why I think they didn't dub season 4, because 5Ds was rolling around, right?
Yeah. That's always been the biggest rumor, that it was that 5Ds starting point. The reason the 5Ds dub didn't finish, and you can track it, was that lawsuit that was going on. But with GX, it's always been, right, as you said, a little more ambiguous as to just speculation. We don't actually know why for sure.
No, and I think that, I mean, I don't know what would have been more satisfying. Make sure your main character is not dead, right? I think that's pretty big.
That's the part that's always been baffling to me, Rarity. I get the decision of not subbing the final season because you're rushing to get 5Ds, but that is a weird endpoint. Isn't a much better endpoint you dub that final episode of season 3, Jaden is seen by Cyrus alive, and then that's how the dub ends. To me, that's a no-brainer as to where you would end the dub. I especially because you have Bonds Beyond Time, where Jaden is clearly one of the main characters. He's clearly fine, and you dubbed that movie. So, even in your own dub continuity, it makes no sense for that to be the final episode of the dub.
Yeah. I don't know why. I also would have loved to see that final episode and that be the ending. I don't know. Maybe they were just like, I don't know. It depends. I know there was multiple individuals. There's, I think, 4 or 5 individuals who handled the translation adaptation, which that's the biggest thing about these dubs that I would love to know is how they are translated. I know that quite a bit, for example, right, they have to abide by laws, right, about certain things can't be on TV for kids.
Yep.
We're even seeing that in the Go Rush dub, right, with the helmets, right? That's a U.S. thing, especially because they're airing
Right.
on Disney, right? That's a lot of it, they've said, is because of mandates, which that I understand. It's very different than most anime dubs now, right, that are either on Toonami, which is, of course, for, like, adults, or they're on streaming services that don't have that kind of restriction, right? Very different world.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I'm really curious of how these dubs are translated and what they are including. Because I think that even more recently, like, the Go Rush dub, of course, is our most recent example. I think they've been somewhat pretty faithful for the most part. They've changed a few things and added some things here and there. But in comparison to this, very more accurate than this.
Yes.
A lot more accurate. But of course, I think the Rush shows are a lot easier to do that with because they don't really have to change much. Though I'm curious how they're going to dub things like, the Valkyrians, Tragic Fate, Udius's Ritual, blah, 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 all that stuff. Like, I'm curious how they're going to do that when we get to that, which... When we get to Go Rush, man, the dub's only going to be through the first season when we get to that point, so we won't be able to talk too much about that when we get to Go Rush next year. Which people have been asking. We're going to do the Rush shows. Don't worry. Don't worry, guys. We're going to cover everything.
Oh, yeah, we'll get to. I mean, it'll take a bit. We're going chronologically.
And that'll be next year.
But
It'll be next
to
year.
them.
We're going to
we
get to them. Don't worry, guys. I know some people were thinking we're going to get to them. Don't worry. I'm watching Sevens for that specific purpose. I'm catching up because I'm catching up.
No, the only thing that we're probably not going to cover on this is the Rush mangas. That's probably going to be the only thing.
Because they're not translated.
Yeah, that's going to be the only thing we don't cover.
Yeah. But I'm just curious how they're translated, what these decisions are made. And also the other thing you have to keep in mind is that usually 1 to 2 minutes of the original episodes are usually cut from dubs because they had to air on TV at different time slots, at different airing orders. I think that's also happening with the current shows too, because time slots in Japan I think are slightly different. I think it's also why the dub openings tend to be shorter, just from the fact that, well, also American openings are shorter. But usually, like, a good 1 to 2 minutes of an episode is usually cut. It's something you probably wouldn't notice unless you know the show like the back of your hand really, really well, about, like, what small things they would cut, or things like that. So there's even that, too, you have to consider is the time slot. Like, even if, like, it's why, like, on Netflix, right, also probably licensing issues, which, not that GX dub is on Netflix, but, like, if you watch, like, for example, the DM dub, right, you're not gonna... Like, if you go to, like, let's say if you were on Japanese Netflix, they have the sub there, and it's a completely different file. Not just because also the visual changes, but also the timing. Because, of course, a few minutes have to be cut off as well. But, yeah, the GX dub is just... I don't think we're ever going to get a Yu-Gi-Oh! Dub like it again. Which I'm saying is, I liked the 5Ds dub, despite the fact they censored everything. I also grew up on it, so I'm very biased. But I don't think that a Yu-Gi-Oh! Dub has had, I think, its own, like, fan base the way the original and GXs do. And I'm happy the GX dub, because I think, like, there was a lot of creativity they had to think about, of just the wild stuff they came up with in the writer's room. You gotta admire that, if nothing else, for the creativity to take. And I think GX was the perfect show to do this with. Even more than Sevens and Go Rush. Because, as you said at the beginning, GX has a lot of one-off characters who are not memorable.
So many. So it
but
doesn't
the
even
dub made
compare
them
to the
all
Rush
memorable.
Shows. Yeah, no,
the
they
dub
did.
made them all memorable by making them all memes. And like, it's like, it's insane how many they made to make them more iconic. Like, I remember, I think, these one-off characters because of the dub versions. I think is why. I think, like, Lorenzo, right, the guy who used the machines, they made him like a greaser kind of guy. Bada bing, bada boom, right?
Oh my god!
You remember that?
Yeah.
You remember the creepy lawyer? You remember T-Bone, right, who was one of the Monarch people, right? You remember him?
I remember that Cats the musical was also mentioned at some point.
Oh yeah,
I mean the amount of like fourth wall breaking, and I'm going to ask you this, one of my favorite one-liners, and I love when, like, the fourth wall gets broken. It's something that the Paper Mario series, I think, always did really well and very subtly. And I remember there was one where Cyrus was talking, and I think I don't remember the episode, but he said something like, man, do you remember when Jaden had to duel a monkey? That was a weird episode. And like, I'm like, okay, that's totally breaking the fourth wall. Like, these characters should not be referring to, those episodes as episodes. Like, it was just things like that were so funny. What were some of your favorite?
Oh, I think I mentioned them earlier, but remember when Cyrus, they're in Battle City, right? And they're at the dock. It's like, at least I'm caught up on my Yu-Gi-Oh history. You never hear the word Yu-Gi-Oh in any freaking thing.
Yeah, you're right.
It's the fact they called it that. I think that's like the only time, aside from like the openings, right, that they actually say the word Yu-Gi-Oh in Yu-Gi-Oh, right? Because it's Duel Monsters or Rush Duel or whatever we're playing, right? Like they don't call it that. That was really cool. Dino DNA, I think I mentioned that last. Dino DNA, I love that. I also love they made that a skill in Duel Links. I love that. My Dino DNA. I think the dub is why I like Castleberry as a character that much. I love him. He's great. He makes me laugh.
He had a very good voice in the dub.
Oh, I loved him. Yeah, David Wills is great. I love him as an actor. I also think, this is no time to be speaking Australian, Jim. Oh, that's an iconic one. That's a very iconic one, especially, of course, if I have a friend who's Australian who's not a big fan of that, but yeah, the Jim Crocodile Cook, they had to do some stuff there of like the alligator. Oh, I love Shirley. I like they changed her name to Shirley. I think that's a cute name for the crocodile. The fact we still have a crocodile as a character in GX, man. Oh my god.
Yeah, well, she acts like a pet dog. It's the funniest thing.
It's the best. I love Yugioh.
It feels so Australian. It feels like so on brand.
It is so good.
Another one that I loved is when Chaz is like yelling at Ojama Yellow. And calls Ojama Yellow a pit stain, and then like Ojama Yellow disappears, and Chaz was facing the direction of Alexis, and Alexis just goes, "Excuse me," because she thinks that he was talking to her. And like, I think in the original, Alexis is just like, "You okay?" But instead they made it like a whole insult thing. That was really good too.
It adds further to the Manjome, Chaz like looking for love kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think that the dub really emphasized Bastion's whole formulas bit. He has a formula for everything. Of course, get your game on. Of course, I love that catchphrase. I think I like it more than Jaden's Judai's gotcha. I think get your game on is really iconic when he was like, I'm gonna throw down a face down. Like,
yeah, he had a lot of good phrases in the GX dub.
It fits Jaden as a character super well. That's the thing about, I'll say, I think the dub really captured Jaden as a character really well. I'll say that. I think as a character, they captured him beautifully. I really, really loved him. I love his performance. So I think that it is a great job there. I love that they always emphasize the way that Crowler says dueling. I have a PhD in dueling. Yep. Which, by the way, if you didn't know, Crowler's English voice actor is Sean Schemmel, who plays Goku, by the way, if you guys didn't know that. That's Goku, guys. Remember that. That's freaking Goku. Like, yeah. Which Sean Schemmel's been in Yu-Gi-Oh before, so it's not like this is a new thing for him. And I think he was in 5Ds. I think he's the announcer in 5Ds, if I remember correctly. But it's really cool to see these voice actors also from their DM roles. Like, of course, Bastion was also played by Eric Stewart, who plays Kaiba. So it's kind of cool to see their range. Wayne Grayson, who was Joey, is Cyrus, right? Being the best friend character twice. And they also, again, had some newer talent where Ted Lewis, of course, we know him, the GOAT. He was Bakura. He played Chumley for the first 50 episodes. Then when he came back, somebody else took over. I'm not sure why. Christopher C. Adams, who's Jesse, went on later to play Crow. Things like that. And I just love all that. Also, Eric Stewart was Neos, which I always thought was interesting. Kaiba is Neos. And of course, the voice actors from DM they brought back. Like Darren Dustman returned as Pegasus. Eric Stewart returned as Kaiba. Things like that. Dan Green was there for the little Yugi cameo at the beginning as well. So it's cool to see the voice actors come back. I love it when they do that. I'm sure, like, for the Sevens dub, Go Rush dub, they're going to bring back Yugi's voice actor, I'm pretty sure. I bet they will.
I'm pretty sure. It would have been really cool to see the final duel of GX get dubbed, Jaden versus Yugi. It stinks that was the one thing that I hate that we were, robbed of by not getting that final season.
Yeah, which I guess, we kind of got an interaction between them in Bonds Beyond Time as well, which was nice. But I love you brought up Bonds Beyond Time, which we will be doing a separate video on that, guys, so don't worry about that. Bonds Beyond Time will be covered. But I think it's so interesting so I remember as a kid, because I didn't know about the sub at the time, I was like, wait, why does Jaden look different? Why is he with the Professor Banner and the cat? And I figured about Yubel because I know the fuse, but I was like, what is happening? What happened to him? Why was he in Venice? Why was he randomly in Venice?
Right. Well,
like,
that's the
why
issue.
was he not in school? Like,
Yeah,
why was he
that's
wearing a school uniform? But,
that's the issue by not dubbing that final episode of season 3, because even in the continuity of the dub, like it makes so many like young kids ask the question why, and like it was a weird decision, but I'm excited to do the Bonds Beyond Time video a little later on. But I mean, listen, at the end of the day, I think, if you haven't watched the GX dub in a while and you have a bad memory of it, I would say watch it, give it another rewatch, and try to have a different mindset of not looking for a one-to-one dubbing product, but try to watch it almost as if you're watching like an abridged version of the original show. And I'm telling you, it's going to be a lot more enjoyable for you. Now, I know that's not possible for some people because some people, just only want that one-to-one version, which I get. But listen, I think it's all about mindset with the GX dub, and I think it's a comedic genius product. I would not maybe call it an accurate dub, but I would call it a comedic genius take on the Yu-Gi-Oh! GX anime, and all in all, a very memorable dub for that reason. So listen, please, guys, let us know your thoughts on the Yu-Gi-Oh! GX dub. Let me know some of your favorite one-liners. Let me know some of your favorite things that you did, or maybe things that you wish they did a little differently. Anything you want to say on the GX dub, please let us know down below. I'm going to throw it over to Rarity. Please follow her on YouTube and Twitter. She does a lot of great work. I'm going to let her promote all the stuff that's going on in her world. So Rarity, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Dylan. Hi, guys, again. Thank you guys for watching this week's episode. And if you are like me and you are a big fan of Yu-Gi-Oh! Go Rush and really sad that it's ending and you kind of want to do something to tribute to it in a sense, or give back, kind of do a little appreciating Yu-Gi-Oh! But mini bite size, I'm actually hosting a Yu-Gi-Oh! Go Rush community tribute project. I will have the video explaining everything as well as the Google form down in the description of this video. Thank you, Dylan, for allowing me to promote this. You guys can basically just do a little submission, either a message of a piece of media or without, kind of just your way of giving back and a little positive thing you want to say about Yu-Gi-Oh! Go Rush. Submissions end on April, I believe it is the 15th. That is a Tuesday. It's about 1 month after they've opened. I opened them about almost 2 weeks ago at the time of recording this. And please, anybody's welcome to contribute. I really would love to have everybody in the community come together to celebrate Yu-Gi-Oh! Go Rush as a wonderful show, and potentially could be the last Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime we have for a long while. So if you guys are interested in that, let them down below. As for other stuff going on with me, I know that I keep saying this every single month. I know y'all are getting tired of it. We are working on stuff behind the scenes. Don't worry in terms of the Phantom Cruise works. We've gotten to a lot of slow patches. Again, it's a very busy semester or time period for all of us. I'm very busy myself. So I think that's something that we're all working on, but hopefully when we get all that stuff out, it'll be really, really good. We like to cook in the oven until it's ready to come out for you all. So I really hope you look forward to that. And I'm looking forward to next month where we talk about the Yu-Gi-Oh! GX manga, which I think is very underrated. I'm so excited to talk about the GX manga. And I think a lot of people don't really know about it other than like the masked heroes and like that Manjome is a completely different character. I feel like there's like the two things that mainly people kind of know about the GX manga. So I'm excited to talk about it and bring it more to the forwards. As you guys know, the spin-off mangas are my jam, so I'm very excited to talk about that next month as our final video in this kind of trio of videos relating to Yu-Gi-Oh! GX, which is turning 20 this year. And I'm really happy that GX is getting some more love from Konami. I think they've kind of been ignoring it for a long time. So I'm happy that GX is getting its flowers in a sense. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. And I'm looking forward to discussing, again, the GX manga next month.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the GX manga. Everybody, thank you so much for watching. Please check out Rarity. Rarity, as always, thank you so much for joining me for the podcast. This concludes Appreciating Yu-Gi-Oh! Episode 9 on the Yu-Gi-Oh! GX dub. Thank you guys all so much for watching, and I hope you have an amazing day. Take care, guys.